Good afternoon. My name is Menashe Musa, and today I'll be doing my interview video assignment. Before we get things started, I'll just give you a little brief description about my life. I was born in Bulawayo, Zimbabwe, where I lived there for 4 years, and then after that, me and my family moved to South Africa when we lived in Johannesburg. I lived in South Africa for about 10 years before my family decided to relocate to Canada, where we moved to Hudson Bay, Saskatchewan. In Hudson Bay, Saskatchewan, that's where I finished off my schooling at the Hudson Bay Community School, where I went from grade 9 to grade 12. After I was done school there, I decided to move to Lethbridge, Alberta to continue my education at the Lethbridge College, where I took the criminal justice program. At my time in Lethbridge, I've met wonderful people and amazing friends. And to get things started here, the first competency I picked was adaptability. And the question was, tell us about a time you had to learn a new skill or a point of view in order to achieve an outcome. Growing up, we moved around a decent amount, and I moved to South Africa when I was about 4 years old. And my time there, I didn't really know how to speak English, and English was one of the major languages out there. So I had to learn English. And going to school was somewhat tough for me because I didn't know any English at all, and I couldn't really communicate with anyone. So I had to just see the way people talked and the different sounds they made when they were speaking, and I somewhat self-taught myself English and a few other languages by just observing the way people talked, the sounds they made, and how they communicated. And that was very beneficial for me because it taught me different languages, and I was better myself in being able to communicate with other people. And then moving to Canada too. In Canada, when I got here, I could speak English decent amount, and I could speak good enough English to hold a conversation with the person, but it wasn't really that great. And people used to make fun of me for that. So I decided I was going to learn better English, and that way I'll be a better communicator and just people would make fun of me anymore. So I learned better English by just observing the way people spoke out here, because it was a different lingo than what they spoke in South Africa and what they have out here. So I learned the lingo they spoke here, I learned the way they spoke English out here, and it just bettered myself and bettered my understanding of the language and how it differed from two different continents. And by learning it, it resulted in me losing the anxiety of talk. Like I was scared to talk to people before that because I thought they'd just make fun of me after that. So it got rid of the anxiety, and I was able to communicate with people, and they stopped making fun of the way I spoke and my accent. The second competency I picked was diversity, and the question for that was talk about a time I had to work with a diverse population. Well, when I moved to Hudson Bay, Saskatchewan, it was really not that diverse of a community, but there was a lot of different cultures out there, such as Ukrainians and a lot of Russians out there, and then my family too. But I really didn't go out and about on my way to learn much about their work with them, even though I had a few friends who were Ukrainian and Russian. But when I moved to Lethbridge, there was a more diverse population out here. And for one assignment I had to do last year, the teacher asked us to go out and speak to a group of people that were not one of our own, so just different groups of people. So I chose to go to the Wilson Harai colony, where I learned the way of living out there, and it was pretty much this. It wasn't the same as us, but it was something I could relate to because after I went there and I saw the way they did things, went home and I called my parents, and they told me that the way the people at the Wilson Harai colony and the way they ate and how they separate from men and women, and how the men do their certain chores and the women do certain chores, was how my parents grew up living. And that somewhat going there somewhat encouraged me to learn a little bit more about my culture, and which I did, and it was amazing because I learned more about my culture and a different culture at the same time, which I found was pretty cool and an interesting experience in my life. And the third competency I picked was initiative. And here basically is talk about a time I had to stay on task in order to accomplish an initiative. A time I had to stay on task to accomplish something. For this one, I chose. The scenario I chose was it was in 2016, and I was DJing for my friends. And that night it was mid-January, and we're having some weird weather, so it was somewhat rain. It was raining a little bit out, and as soon as they touched the road, it froze. So we're leaving the little party or the get together we're at, and as we're going, I was driving my friend home in his vehicle, and we ended up rolling the vehicle, hit the ditch, and we rolled. And after that happened, there was three of us in the vehicle. It was myself, my friend Keenan, and my friend's sister Ruth. And after that happened, after we rolled, I got out of the vehicle, and everyone emotions were very high at the time. So just it was it was just a very high emotion situation, and very scary because we had a patch of black ice, lost control of the vehicle, and hit the ditch. A very scary moment. And after that happened, I just had to take a minute and think what has just happened. And so then I realized we had actually rolled the vehicle, and it wasn't just a dream or anything, and someone had to do something about it. My friend Keenan, he was raging out of control because I just wrecked his vehicle, and Ruth, she was just coming along for the ride. We were going to drop them off, and she was terrified too, and so was I. And in the roll, I lost my phone, so I couldn't contact anyone, and so I just decided to step away from the situation for like 10 seconds, and then I just take a moment and just realize what just happened, and which I did. And then after that, I decided to take action. And I went over to Keenan and I told him that there was not much we could really do now except find a way to get home or just find a way to resolve this. And I talked to him for a bit, and he calmed down. Then I went to Ruth and I talked to her, and I asked her if she had a phone, and which she did. So I took her phone, and then I started making a few calls to people to come pick us up. And when they picked us up, they took us over to my other friend Kyle's house, where I called Keenan's parents and I told them what had happened, and they came over, they picked us up, and then they drove us home. And when we got home, I explained everything what had happened, and they were just happy we were okay, because it's unexpected. That's something that you never expect to happen to your kids. So I just explained everything, and I apologized, and I offered to pay for the damages and everything, in which they didn't take it because they had insurance to cover it. But then for that situation, I just took control of the situation, and I solved it. We somewhat came out to a conclusion for it, but someone had to take initiative because no one would have done anything. It would just been high emotions, everybody yelling if no one would have done anything. And then lastly, I chose stress management for my last competency. And the question for that is, talk about a time you dealt with stress. For this one is more recent occurrence. It was at the start of the semester. So I had taken 2 electives, and my education is being paid through student loans, and I picked 2 electives which I took both this year. And so I guess my student loans did not cover for the cost for the 2 electives. And at the start of this semester, I was using my Canvas, scrolling through all my work and everything, and I got locked out. And I went and spoke to the people at the front desk, and they told me that, it's just because this one payment hasn't come in. It should be coming in soon from your student loans, which it didn't. And then they told me it would be about $350, and then I was like, okay, no problem. I could probably get that. It's not much. It's quite a bit of money, but it's something I could handle. It'll be a big dent in my pocket, but it's not too bad. And I went upstairs and spoke to the financial people, and they told me it was about $800, $900 that was outstanding, and I was like, whoa, that's too much for me. So for that one, how I dealt with that stress, because I'm right here, they told me that I had to get the money in about 2 weeks, or else everything of mine will be canceled. They'll take me off the schedules for my classes and everything. So basically, they would unenroll me. I was taken out of the program. And I spoke to them. I came to conclusions. I spoke to them for a bit. I asked them different payment methods, which they didn't really accept, but they kept giving me more time. And I spoke to my dad. And speaking with him, he told me just to calm down, and he could help me out. And which he did. He ended up paying for I think it was just a little bit over half of it, and I paid the rest. But with that part is, I just want to be my own person now that I'm away from home, and I wanted to pay for it, which obviously couldn't. It was quite a bit of money for a broke college student, I'd put it. But with that, how I dealt with that stress was, I was getting ready for a fitness test, which I had to go back to SAS for, and I obviously had to work out, and which I did. I worked out a lot, so whenever I just feel that stress coming on, I just go to the gym and just run or whatever, like go lift weights and just get my mind off of it. And which I found very beneficial for me, because there could have been two routes I could have chosen. I could have chosen party, whatever, do drink and whatever to get rid of the stress, or the more safer and beneficial way for myself to get rid of the stress, in which I chose just to work out, and basically that helped me cope with the stress of that money problem, and eventually was all sorted out, and here I am today coming to the end of my program, and I'll be graduating soon, and I'm very thankful for that. And yeah, I've come to the end of my interview, and thank you very much. Hope you enjoy.